But I didn't.
Did you put your mouth on the udder?
I didn't. They put it in a cup for me, but I definitely didn't claim it when I came back in. Have you been in contact with any livestock? Like they ask you all those questions.
Define
Contact. I'm so happy that the opening line to the podcast is going to be talking about udders.
I was in contact with the essence of an udder, which isn't the same thing as being in direct.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
How direct is the contact with the livestock?
Well. Yep. Okay. So once again, this is a very funny episode, but just as funny as it is, kind of like the other ones, it goes just as deep. And there's some extremely profound things on here. So I'm excited for you guys to learn with us as we hung out with my friend and our friend, Mike Donehey. Mike is an incredible songwriter, was a part of the band 10th Avenue North. He's an author, he's a speaker. He actually brings people along on a really deep journey, so you're going to love this episode. For those of you who are new to our community, thank you for jumping in and checking it out. I think you're going to dig it. Go back and listen to some of the other episodes. And would you rate this and like it and comment on it? You guys, it's actually really helpful for us. If you go back there and rate it and make some comments, it really puts us in a better light as far as promoting this show. And then would you share the show with people that you think that it might help? And we are supported purely by you guys. So please, would you go to 10,000minutes.com, 10,000minutes.com. In the upper right-hand corner, it says donate. And would you just consider donating every month or one large tax-deductible gift? Heyo. And then if you want to get our free text messages, just encouraging every week on whatever we're practicing, just text 10K to 55678. The number is 55678, and you put 10K. All right, get ready. This one rocks. Okay, welcome to the 10,000 Minute Experiment podcast. My name's Timothy Howard Timmons. We've got Amoy. What would your middle name be?
Plot twist, Amoy is my middle name.
Oh, it is.
Ooh, got him.
Plot twist is your middle name?
Yeah, good one, Mike D. Amoy is my middle name.
Ooh.
Yeah, because my first name is even harder to pronounce.
Are we allowed to, can you tell
Give
us?
it a go.
Are we friends enough yet?
Yeah, I mean, episode. What episode are we on? I mean, we're all in. So it's Iram. It's my mom's nickname backwards.
Mary.
Yeah, it's Mary backwards. Why couldn't I just have Mary? I don't know.
I love it.
Iram.
Yes.
Iram Amoy Donis.
Oh gosh, yes. And
That's
my brother
the best
got
name.
Eric Donis. And my dad's Leo, and my mom's Mary. It makes no sense.
No, I think you're doing great.
Thanks.
Gosh.
I'm winning.
Thank you. And Christopher.
Kyle Cleveland.
Kyle Cleveland.
Kyle.
It's the perfect name, guys. Don't be too jealous about it, but it just rolls off the tongue.
Christopher Kyle Cleveland. I mean, if your parents spelt it a certain way, that could have been.
It's CKC. Yeah, so don't worry about it.
Okay.
I still don't get it, but I think it's funny.
Close.
And you're Michael Morgan.
Donehey.
Yeah.
MMD, baby.
Yeah.
MMD.
Like a duck.
Whoa.
Let's
If
go.
your parents spelled that a little different, it would have been something different.
Yep.
You know what I mean? If you think about it.
Totally.
Oh,
Okay, what do you think I meant?
Oh, I'm so excited
No
that
idea.
Mike's here. So excited. Soak it in for a
How do I
second.
smell, guys? I was a
Pretty
little
great.
worried about my smell.
Guys, I found out why we had to postpone today a little bit. So I know you guys all had a lot to do. We had to move a lot of things, but Mike had to go golfing this morning.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Hey, but here's the deal. You're gonna.
How many
you're gonna
holes
like
you get
this.
in?
We just walk 9 holes. Me and my former drummer in my band, we meet and we do a little par 3
I love it.
course on Monday mornings, and we walk, and it takes an hour, but it's immovable. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, no,
I
think
love
that's
that.
so great.
Also,
Yeah, so
I think
great.
I could golf if it was just a par 3. Like, I didn't realize that was an option.
Yeah.
Like 9 par 3, because I can't play holes that are longer than 3. What I don't know any golf terms, but I'm always done after 9. Like, I'm in the cart just having a beverage and just watching other people chase balls around.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's basically the in between of mini golf and real golf.
Yeah.
Right.
It's good.
So how many clubs do you have to take?
I mean, it depends. You could do this.
take the whole
course.
bag?
You could. I do, but it's just because I like to go work out while I golf. You know,
I feel you.
I carry sacks of weights, and I wear weight vests.
You
when
do
I
the
play.
belt like
Yeah.
when you're doing pull-ups.
I do pull-ups in between holes. So this is some manly golf.
Yeah. That's pretty strong. Now, Mike and I have done a lot of manly things together.
Super manly.
What I mean by that
Yeah.
is we've worked out an awful lot on the road together.
We sure did. My favorite move, we were in an arena, and do you remember where we were just making up moves where we would hold the railing and kind of shimmy up and down stairwells?
Yeah, like your body could fit between it long ways. Your body could like fit between the two rails, and so it was.
Wait, like were you horizontal over? Like if you fell, you'd fall a whole like.
No, there wasn't any real danger.
Oh, okay.
we just literally.
Just like, hey, check. It
imagine,
actually
like-
sounds like what my 4-year-old does when he's trying to like.
It's totally what we
climb
did.
everything. Yeah,
It's totally what we did. Because, you're in these arena things, and at some point, you're like, you can only run the stairs so many times. And we had some fun outside runs.
We did.
But this one, for some reason, we just wanted to do some, I don't know, upper body something. And so we just started looking at these rails and going, what can we do here? So it was a good half an hour.
We definitely got some really funny looks by employees who were walking the corridor, just going, "What are you doing?" Because we got our feet up against the wall and we're shuffling along the banister like a little squirrel.
Yeah.
I've definitely done like pull-ups on basketball goals or something. I'm like,
You could get up there?
I mean, occasionally.
That's a big deal.
I'm
That's-
impressed.
Yeah.
That's really why I said it.
Yeah,
I
it was
wanted
a
you guys.
flex. It was a
I wanted
flex.
you guys to be like impressed by just the fact that I could make it up there.
I'd usually jump up and hang on the top of the backboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a guy in high school. He could get a quarter off the top of the backboard.
That's incredible.
He could jump.
When it was lowered,
Anyways.
because that's what I.
Yeah. When it, like 6.5.
Yeah, I do that out. So everybody, we've got Mike D here, and we want to know why you call up Mike.
We didn't even introduce him yet, have we?
We're talking. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so everybody, we've got Mike Donehey here,
Hello.
and we like to call Mike D.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is that just me that likes to call you Mike D?
So I was in high school.
It feels better. I think partly why I did Mike D is I didn't know exactly how to say your last name.
That's fair. No one really
Is it
does.
he, hey?
It looks like hey,
Right.
but it's pronounced he.
He. Gosh, see?
Donehey.
Gosh, I hate myself.
The actual, I guess, technical Irish pronunciation is Donehey.
Donehey.
Yeah, Donehey. But
Mine was a little more.
mine's more Americanized. I always know when it's telemarketer is Mike Donehey there. But I was at a theater thing, and my
What's a theater thing mean?
I went to a thing called Governor's School, where it was a performing arts magnet intensive for a month at the University of Richmond going into my senior year. You had to audition for, and I got in with other performing arts. So there's kids there for choir and theater and dance and visual art.
What was yours for?
I was there for theater arts, for acting. Acting.
Which acting is just reacting.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, it's just reacting. So
There's a so I'm there,
goodness.
and my roommate goes, he was Mike Lee, and he goes, "You're gonna be Mike D because Beastie Boys." And
That's what
I
I
said,
thought
"Oh,
of when
okay,
you said it.
sure." But up till that point, no one had ever called me Mike D. They just called me Mike. And then I got to college. First week of college, they said, "Hey," I had 4 Mikes in my little orientation group.
Yeah.
So they go, "We need to differentiate you Mikes."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I went to this theater thing, and everyone called me Mike D." They said, "Done, Mike D." And it stuck hard. Where even now, if I see someone who went to college at the same time as me,
yeah,
I think people actually thought my last name was D-E-E.
like Lee, but D.
Yeah, Mike D.
Yeah.
But no, it was Mike D.
You know how Bart has that thing about chunk? You know, Texans, they say if you throw something,
Chuck
that you chunk it.
or chunk it. Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
Texas. Do
Just
you have that?
throw
Amy?
a baseball or
I'm going to chuck a baseball, or I'm going to chunk a
Yeah.
baseball.
Chunk it
What
over
would
there.
you say?
we'll see in golf. I'm on golf because I played golf this morning.
gosh, right.
Chunking would mean you mishit it.
Yeah.
You took a big
Yeah.
divot before
you
the ball.
took a chunk out of
out
the
of
divot.
ground.
But you don't throw, you don't
No,
chunk the chunk
No.
of grass. You chuck. But people from Texas, they are like,
It's like wash.
well, they say pumpkin chunkin,
Pumpkin.
pumpkin chunkin.
Wait.
It's
Pumpkin
like,
chunkin'?
it's something that they do in Texas. And so they're all
Yeah.
convinced that the word is chunkin.
When I hear the word chunk, I think of the Goonies.
Totally.
Yeah.
Obvi.
There's the only way.
You can't even throw him.
Yeah. There's one time, it's the worst part. It's the worst thing I ever done. I made this fake throw up. I went to this movie and I hit it in my jacket, and then I got in the top and I threw it over the balcony. I made this noise like,
wow. Hey, round of applause.
I'm so excited that none of us have self-control to stop a bit.
Yes.
I was like, keep going.
None of us.
This one time I used my uncle's toupee when I played Moses in my Hebrew school play. This one time I pushed my sister down the stairs and I blamed it on the top.
So, anywho,
Oh,
strong.
man. We got actor Mike D.
Mike,
I went-
Mike Lee, total.
I don't know why you did music.
Tell me about it.
Man.
Acting is reacting.
Oh, that's good.
Well, I mean, I didn't have that on my list of things that you do. So, what I was going to say to you, Mike, is that I was thinking you're an author.
I suppose.
I mean, you've got a book out.
Sure.
It's a very cute title.
Thank you.
I wrote it down, Finding God's Life for My Will.
That is what I was going for, is cute.
I know, but it's probably not the best word.
Cute.
But I would like to talk about that. You're also a podcaster.
Yep.
You do that.
I do this as well. Yeah.
You're what we like to call a singer-songwriter,
I sure hope so.
artist. You left the band for King and Country.
I did. They kept asking me in the band. I said no.
Was it your accent?
Yeah.
Can you do a good Australian accent?
Hey, it's Brucey. I was thinking about
It's like Crocodile Dundee.
I've promised, I swear, that I will not eat a fish on my honor.
Okay, good. I think we got that part.
God.
What I did not add to it was actor or
Actor.
reactor.
Reactor. Thank you.
Also, we need to say the real name of his band. 10th Avenue North.
I was in the band
Yeah.
called 10th Avenue North.
For how long?
21 years.
Shaka Khan.
run.
That's long.
That's a long time.
Anyway, would you talk quickly about Finding God's Life for My Will? What was your whole point with that thing?
Yeah.
I didn't read it,
Thank you. Great.
but somebody might.
Could you convince me to read it right now?
As a songwriter, I would often write in long form. I actually was blogging on MySpace before I was songwriting.
Wow.
Blogging, writing a little more long form comes very naturally to me. And I just, over the years, I'd get a lot of people asking me, when did you know this was God's will for your life to be in this band?
Gosh.
That I think when you're in a visible platform doing something that seems very connected to spirituality, people just think that you must have had this divine, holy calling.
Right.
And I always say to people, I don't know. And they don't like that answer.
Yeah.
They want to know when. No, because I know God's gonna just. I go, no, God never really told me to do it. He didn't tell me not to. And I really love writing songs and have come to love it. So I'm just trying to write songs in a way that actually help people.
Yeah.
You know? So the whole book is try not to figure out God's will, try to let God's life change your will. That's probably really what we all need. And it could really be summed up in this Frederick Buechner sentence. You ever read any Freddie B? He's best. He said, your calling is where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. So the idea is, it's been my experience, a lot of people in church circles, they either talk about, I need to come alive. You know, there's that St. Ignatius quote, the glory of God is man fully alive. So in one of the John Eldridge books, he talks about that. You don't need to ask what the world needs. You need to ask yourself what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is people who have come alive. I said, yeah, that's nice, but that's just half of it, right? I totally agree. You need to ask, what could I do that's going to fill me, get me excited, make me want to get out of bed in the morning, give me passion, all that. But if you only ask that, you'll just become an egomaniac, narcissist.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, a lot of people in church circles will go, hey, what does the world need? What does the world need? The world needs water. The world needs orphanages. The world needs this. So a lot of people who actually aren't wired to do that run and go try to do it because that's what the world needs. And then what happens? They burn out, you know? So I love Frederick Buechner's philosophy here. It's both. You have to ask both questions. What am I good at? What am I wired to do? Where's my deep gladness? And how can I do that thing in a way that actually meets the world's great hunger and needs?
Yeah.
So
we are in a series of sorts on practicing the presence of God.
Brother Lawrence.
Brother Lawrence. But taking it out of just being a cute little book that is awesome, and it is a little book.
It makes me feel better that you called my book cute because you called Brother Lawrence's book cute too.
We're feeling you're in good company right now.
Company, okay.
But we're trying to take that out of just this conceptual idea and put it into practice. Like this week, what would it look like for us to practice the presence of God? And I think what you're bringing in is this idea of the will of God. And I mean, how many times have we asked that when I was younger? How many people have asked me that? Hey, how do you know the will of God for my life? So I just wanted to dive into the idea of practicing the presence of God. How do you do that and look for, is it the will of God? Is that what we're looking for? Which I think the answer is no. So what's it practically look like for you?
Okay, I'll tell you something really tangible here. Because short answer, what's God's will for my life? Well, one thing I know is to not be afraid. I've been saying this to my wife all last week. I said, what if we weren't afraid? Just what if we weren't afraid, and what if we believed we're loved? Those two things. Because the most repeated command in the Bible is do not be afraid, right? 365 times, which, I don't know if that's actually true or if
sounds good though.
People just want it to
really
be true.
lines up.
Finagled it a
They're
little
actually
bit.
439. But
The point is, it's it's most repeated command in all of Scripture. So you could argue the number one thing God wants for our life is to not be afraid, to not live in fear. And what drives out fear? Perfect love casts out all fear, right? So really tangibly, I was talking to my counselor. I go to Porter's Call, because they offer free counseling to artists. My dude there was explaining, because I was saying this last week, we sold a house and we're buying a new house, and I was full of all this anxiety. And he said, you know what anxiety it is? I go, no. He goes, your brain is telling you that life is going to move faster than it actually is.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that good? Because the reason we get afraid is our brain, our fight or flight, part of our brain, the lizard brain, is trying to see around corners and preemptively see danger so we can be ready for it. And anxiety is you're physically manifesting that getting ready for something bad to happen. And so this week I've just been taking a big breath and going, that's not there. It's not here now. That's not here now. That's what I keep saying.
Wow.
As you read headlines of news and just things are going to be worse and they're going to be worse and they're going to get worse and everything's going to, that's not here now. So practicing the presence is the present. You can't practice the presence of God without practicing the present. Right? There's a really great quote I love to tell myself that I think we talked about when we wrote a song together, Chris and I, called Glory I Couldn't See, which kind of is about this. But there's a quote that says, the secret to peace is to embrace your current circumstance as if you had chosen it.
Yeah.
That until you choose your moment, you're actually a victim to your moment.
Say that line one more time.
You must embrace your current circumstance as if you had chosen it. So when you're feeling like a victim and you're going, I don't like this circumstance. I don't like this hand I've been dealt. I don't want to be here. If you're resisting it, then you can't actively participate in it. You have to at some point go, I choose this. I don't choose that it happened, but I choose where I am right now.
Okay, so before we go any further, I just want to say these lines again, and I'd love for you to put this into your own context. He said you can't practice the presence of God without practicing the present. What's it look like for you to practice the present moment with God? And then embrace your circumstances as if you were choosing it. With what you've gone through in your life so far, how does that settle on you? Okay, so I'm going to get real right now. Is that okay?
I love real.
How does that set with you? So Moy lost her brother, and
10 years ago.
10 years ago. How does that line set with you? How does that work in real life? So I love theoretical ideas, but how does this work when the stuff hits the fan?
I mean, I think today that is where I am. I think today I do participate in my grief, and I participate in the ways I need Jesus. I I think before it felt like it didn't align with who he is. So I think I also had to just be open and curious with the ways God could love me. Because I think before I had a really set view. And so I'm not going to participate in something that doesn't really reflect love or reflect God. Like all of this isn't of him. But now, 10 years later, I think I'm like, do I wish my brother back? I mean, I think it'd make people uncomfortable if I said no, because I've experienced Jesus in such a different way. And I know that sounds so messy and complex, but I think I'm embracing where I'm at now and the parts of my life that God has truly been God, if that makes sense. But I think a few years ago, I think especially in the beginning of grief, you're like, I will not participate. I will not accept this. Like you're in that denial stage, you're in the bargaining, all those things. But I struggle with a lot of anxiety too, because I'm expecting the next death and I'm expecting the next tragedy, and kind of accepting what's today has actually helped me with my anxiety. So I do agree with that statement. I wouldn't say every day I agree with it, but most days I do.
Yeah, it seems like you have to go through those stages of grief to get to acceptance, to get to that place, right? You've got to take the time to get there. And that's for grief. It could be just like, oh, something happened today that I didn't choose. But in order for me not to be a victim of it, I have to live my life as I did. And I think that's really powerful and in more of a short distance run than kind of a long distance run of the grief of losing someone, you know?
So
really
how else, Mike, would this be practical? Like in your week, give me an example of how this plays out.
Okay, really great. The very practical. My wife is away on a trip to Mexico. I have 4 daughters right now. Yeah. Having 4 girls is great. Just means someone's always crying. Yeah. And it's usually me. But this last week, they have been, I don't know if there's a full moon, but they are amping up the wailing and the weeping. I mean, it is just through, the needle is through the roof. The beginning of Back to the Future where he hits the guitar. I mean, and one of the ways that we really hurt our children is when we make them feel as if they are too much for us. And a lot of hurt and damage we do is, you need to get it together. Well, why do they need to get together? Because it's triggering me. And so one of the things I have to do is go, I'm here now, and I choose my daughter, and I choose to be here with her, even though she's losing her mind. And it is fascinating because we have this thing in our house. You're allowed to be sad. I feel like a lot of people I know grow up, certain emotions are wrong and certain emotions are right. And that's not true. All emotions are a gift and they're telling you something.
Revealing
if
stuff.
you could listen to it. And so it's fascinating to me when I go, stop it. Just be quiet. Just don't do that. Don't do that. Like, don't flip your lid. I mean, and I do think there is some, you got to teach your kids the difference between being sad and losing their mind. But there is some, we got to teach them that. But more often than not, we err on the side of squashing unnecessarily. And so for me, the words my wife and I use is, when they escalate, I must remain the same. Because it's all they want to know. All they really want to know is, am I too much? Am I too much? I'm okay? You're okay? It's phenomenal how if I just sit there and I don't escalate, I go, we're not going to do that right now. And they flail. And I mean, they all flail. They're all different ages. So they all flail in different ways. And if I can just stay there and say, I choose to be here, it's amazing how quickly they'll recorrect when I don't try to help them recorrect.
And what's that look like as you're talking about choosing to be somewhere in the presence of God? As you're in the present moment, in the presence of God, is that the practice?
I mean, the practice, I think for a lot of parents, here's something that I'm really.
I mean, this is somebody on the street driving a car that somebody cuts me off. I mean, this is in all areas.
Right.
Go.
I'm going to stick with a tangible here. I remember when we had 2 kids and we had this friend group, and we would go over to each other's houses and we would have a meal once a week or couple times a month. We'd have some worship and prayer time, but it was a huge sacrifice because we all had little kids, and we would bring them and try to put them down in our friends' bedrooms to have this night where we could feel like normal humans. It was a couple weeks into that, and my second child was just losing her mind, inconsolable. And I'm in this room. All my friends are in the other room having a party, basically. I mean, they're having food, they're laughing, they're talking. And I'm just going, you are keeping me from where I want to be.
Yep.
And there was this moment where I just heard this whisper in my head of, your friends are going to come and go. You're going to be this kid's father forever.
Wow.
So choose this child over your friends.
Yeah.
It's so hard because as parents, we're called to do that night after night after night after night.
Yeah.
Think how many things you say no to and you can't go be at because you have to put your kids down to bed and you have to be there. But if I am actively resisting and resenting the fact that I'm putting my kid to bed.
Yeah.
I mean, last night my sister came over and same thing. I wanted to get my kids to bed faster because I wanted to sit and talk to my sister.
Yeah.
And it's that tension of going, no, I have to sit here. And so, I mean, last night I was trying to get my two youngest to bed and they weren't going to bed. And this just doesn't always work out this way.
Yeah.
But I go, you know what? My sister can wait. And I started singing songs to them and they both fell asleep in 5 minutes. You know, where I think if I had kept resisting and go to bed, just be quiet. They would have been up for 30 more minutes, you know?
Yeah.
So that's like a tangible thing. It's funny you talk about road rage. Last week, my wife and I were walking down the side of the road on our street. And this guy, there's an Amazon truck in front of us with the blinkers on the side of the road. And this truck swings around it and then comes barreling directly at us. And we jump over off the road. And then he drives by and he starts cussing and yelling at us. And so he gets past us and I jump out in the street and I lift my hands up and I go, hey, like that.
Yeah.
And then I suddenly realize I have just elevated this
Totally.
unnecessarily. And so then I just started dancing.
Disarm.
Well, that actually probably made it worse because he slams his brakes, throws it in reverse.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, listen, a-hole. Well, you jumped out in front of my truck. I went, no, I did not, sir. He goes, yes, you did. Where do you live, a-hole? Where do you live?
Yeah.
And I said, I'm so sorry, sir. I did not, just trying to be as polite as possible. And then
Did you not see my dance moves?
Yeah. And then he peeled off. So, sometimes there's nothing you can do to put the fire out.
But there's putting a fire out within your own soul. I mean, in that moment, you're in crazy land. My kids get me in that place all the time. Or there's some kind of road, something that happens. I mean, I get into that place that my kids get and I can't even get out of it,
Yeah.
It's like finding sobriety and getting to a place where I need to take a breath and go, okay, I'm here in this present moment with you, Jesus.
Can I tell you, practically,
Yes.
breathing is the most underrated, unutilized weapon we have against anxiety and tension. I just did this breathwork meditation thing with a guy out in Wyoming. I was at this retreat in Wyoming and there's a guy there who he just kind of mumbled like, I do breath work. And I go, really? Because my best friend in the world is obsessed with this guy named Wim Hof. You know who he is? He's this I think he's German, but he leads all these people in these breathing things and ice baths, breathing and ice baths. And this guy's nuts. I mean, he'll go swim in a frozen lake for as long as he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, crazy. And people get healed of all this stuff. There's all these studies being done about DET, DHT, what's the acid chemical?
I don't know.
The chemical they make acid out of
Yep.
is naturally occurring in your lungs. Did you know that? And when you do these certain breaths, you release that chemical into your body. And so I did this thing in Wyoming. I mean, we were laying in this field next to this river and we all had mats and he had this playlist on a speaker and he was burning sage. And I mean, it was, some of the guys were very uncomfortable. I was going, yeah, dude, let's do it. And all we did was lay on our backs and breathe. That was it. But he had these cycled breathings And I'm telling you, okay, my whole life, since I've been an artist, I have desperately struggled with comparison and jealousy of other artists. And I take all these steps to not be. I do my best.
Which is hard to believe because you've had a pretty good career.
Completely.
Right.
You go, you're such a jerk, Mike. And I even know comparison is the thief of joy, and that the best way.
Yeah, we know all these things.
The best way to get out of comparison is to celebrate others. And I do think that's a really good, tangible thing to do. But laying on the field, just breathing for this hour, I had one of the most physical meets spiritual experiences of my life.
Wow.
And the thing that just would always come in my chest where I felt this comparison and jealousy for other artists was gone. And it's been a month and I have not felt it at all. And it's wild. And it was coupled with that morning I went on this paddleboard thing, and we're in the mountains. I'm on this pristine lake on a paddleboard, and maybe it might have just been, it was my first time away from my kids screaming all the time. And I really felt like the Holy Spirit said, Mike, if I am for you, I'm for them. And if you want me to be for you, you need to be for them. And it's not either or, it's both and. And the fact that I'm for you actually amplifies the fact that I'm for them. And the fact that I'm for them amplifies the fact that I'm for you. And you need to quit believing that I don't have enough to go around. And so, I don't know. I was just Brennan Manning would talk about this breath prayer. It's Abba, I belong to you. So you inhale. Abba, I belong to you. And if you go back, there's actually a lot of spiritual fathers have these breath work prayers.
Yeah. We do a ton of that in 10,000 Minute stuff.
Yeah, great. So, great. Thanks for letting me talk about that.
No, but it's fascinating. I mean, I love it that
it keeps bringing up.
Last week.
Yeah. Keeps coming up.
I wonder if the presence of God is a lot like the presence of our kids. Like, I don't need to go achieve anything to show up for my kids. I just need to be present. I just need to show up.
You actually need to not achieve something to be there.
It's counterintuitive. And I think with God, it's almost the same thing. It's like, okay, I need to not show up in all of these other places and just recognize that we're here. And that's the hardest part about all this. I think that's why breathing helps, because it lets everything else go, right? There's nothing else happening. And I think that's like practicing the presence of God in any of those moments is like, let it all go. God, you're still here. And maybe this is the point of all of it, you know?
Isn't that Yahweh is the breath? Isn't that why?
Right.
It's the sound of the breath.
Yeah, we're always giving different prayers. I think that Brennan Manning stuff has been really helpful. Whether it's Jesus, I trust you today, like that becomes your prayer that week, or Jesus, breathe in, you have my attention. You know, these things that we're doing. I wonder if it's something for people who are listening. So I was thinking about your experience when you're laying there and you found great freedom. Like for all the people who right now are in the car or on a run or doing something, like what's the invitation for the rest of us? You know, I mean, I've been on those trips too, but then most of the year I'm not on those trips.
Right.
And I need some clarity and I need some insight and some help.
So here's something that I don't think enough of us take into consideration. I've been reading a lot of articles on successful people. And I'm always interested, people who blah, 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 blah. And I'm always looking for what is so, and so I'm reading all these articles. Almost every single high performing, you know, and it's so ironic, right? Because we want to achieve more and more and more and more. But they all talk about the health involved with turning off your phone at night and when you turn it on in the morning. And I was listening, Carlos Whitaker? Yeah. He just did this little thing. He was talking about story fatigue. And I thought this was really great. And I have to double check his sources here, but I've heard something similar from other people. It's something like from the beginning of humanity to 2003, all the content that the world created that much content from the beginning of humanity to 2003 is how much content we now create every 2 days.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what we're doing right now. We're creating content for people to listen to. And he said, we wake up in the morning and we get on our phone, and in 15 minutes, we have ingested more stories and more content than our grandparents consumed in a month.
That's crazy.
And so, so that's why you look at all the charts. Anxiety is just through the roof. Depression is through the roof. I think it's because we're being told about more things to be afraid of and more things we're supposed to care about than we're actually created to be able to process. And the desire to be like God, it's so funny, right? Tower of Babel, that was the sin. So we want to be like God. And think about the shame you get if you don't care about every single thing that's happening in the world. And I go, I'm not meant to. In fact, what ends up happening is we take in so much content, it paralyzes us.
Right.
And we don't know where to
For our own story.
to steer our ship.
Yeah.
And we don't know what we're allowed to care about.
Yeah.
You know, even I just put out a record and I'm feeling insensitive posting about my record because, well, there's all these other things happening in the world. How dare I be so inconsiderate?
Right.
And I go, well, I just think a lot of us don't understand just how wide sweeping the effects are of us taking in so much information. And I had this ritual to speak to that. I had this ritual because at the end of the day, you have to make time. You just do.
For anything?
I would say, so when I was in my 20s, I worked at this church and I worked 120 hours a week. I was an intern, you know, and I lived right next to the church. And man, I was on call.
Yeah.
I was just always working. But every morning I would ride my bike 3 miles down the road to this park. And then I'd run this circuit loop and I'd do this workout. But then after my workout, I would go and I'd sit on these bleachers by the soccer field and I would read scripture and I would journal and I would sit there and I would pray. I'd take a prayer walk around the fields and then I'd ride my bike back. And I think there's that old I think it was George Mueller. Do you know who he is? He's a British guy. Yeah. I think he said this. He may not have, but pretty sure he said, when I wake up and I have so much more on my plate, I spend twice as long praying.
Right.
You know, and that idea of just really making space. I think of prayer not as something I achieve or that I do, but I think of prayer as space that I create. Because that's all God needs is space where he can fill. Right. He's not someone I have to achieve to. He's someone I have to let in. Right. And that's another fascinating thing. I'm just riffing here, but one of the things I've been really fascinated with, and I don't know practically how this goes. I love that you're pushing for these practical things, but in Colossians, Paul says over and over and over, let. It's like his favorite word in the book of Colossians. He says, let the peace of God rule in your heart. Let your roots go down into Christ. Jesus even said, let not your hearts be troubled. I love that because he's saying, you have a new default, actually. Your new default is that peace is at your door, trying to get in. And all you have to do is stop actively resisting the peace. Because one of the things I do when my wife leaves, my wife is the most faithful woman. She has given me zero reason to ever doubt her faithfulness. And yet, when she goes on trips, because I try, having toured for years and years, I always try to give her plenty of trips on her own too, and watch the kids. P.S. If you're having marital problems and you have a husband who leaves, just flip the script. Husband, stay home with your kids, and I bet 90% of your problems are going to get sorted.
Big in our marriage, same thing. Yeah.
And so, but on her trips, I will start creating a narrative. She's probably out with a guy. She probably met a guy on her trip. She probably talked to a guy. Because I think my wife is stunning and that guys are just hitting on her all the time. I go, how could they not? They should be because she's gorgeous. Yeah. I don't want them to, but. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I am actively resisting the peace that wants to get in. Yeah. By creating narratives. Yeah. Why am I doing that? You know? And so I don't know how you need to do this, but I really, anyone listening, let the peace of God rule in your heart. It wants to. And all you have to do is stop actively resisting and making up stories of why you shouldn't have peace.
Just trying to think through the idea of letting it in, or is it like awakening to what already exists?
I mean, Paul says, let the peace of God rule in your heart.
Yeah.
Let your roots go down. So there is the reality that it's already doing it. Let your roots go down into Christ. Well, roots are growing.
Yep. Regardless.
But it sounds like, but if you put a wall where the roots are trying to go, they're going to grow sideways. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really good word. Yeah. If we stifle and resist, things come out sideways.
How do you stifle and resist?
Well, I just told you one way. Right. Another way is,
practically, is it believing let's just go to the comparison, because that's also a theme that we've had recently. What's the practical thing that we're doing as we're comparing?
I got a good one. Yeah. So for instance, I always struggle with, I put out new music and I feel like I have to post a ton about it, because if I don't tell people about it, then no one's going to hear about it. So one of the things that I do, and I see lots of other artists do, is you repost. When other people post about it, you repost it. And so I just got into this new habit of, I'm doing that, which is self-promotion, and I still wrestle with it, and I could be wrong. So feel free to judge this statement. But I found a really freeing thing is when someone I know posts about it, then I repost their post and I talk about them and how great what they're doing is. So I'm still trying to promote my stuff, but I'm at the same time going, but my stuff isn't the only stuff out there. In fact, this person's stuff is amazing. This is so good. I found when it gets late at night, if my wife is gone or she's already in bed, that's usually when I get real in my feels. I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, a social 4. So people mistake me as a 7 because I'm the counter type of the 4. I don't know, for all you Enneagram lovers out there. 4 hard 3-wing, obviously.
Yes.
Sorry if you don't understand Enneagram out there. I'm not trying to make you feel isolated, but I understand the feelings of isolation.
That's too real. Too real.
So as a 4, I get in my feels at night. And here's a real practical thing that I've been doing is in that moment when I feel really lonely. And the problem is I'm learning how to ask someone to come over. Oh, I feel lonely. I need to reach out and ask someone to hang out. And that's the struggle for me, I think, because I toured so long.
Right.
That I never had the time. It was always, well, I'm home now. I got to be home. Or maybe it's too late to ask someone over. You know what I do? I just started looking through my contacts and just started sending people text messages of why I love them. It has nothing to do with me. 100% other directed. And you know what's fascinating? 30 minutes of that, I feel incredible.
Yeah.
Because I realize I have these amazing people in my life and they're incredible. And isn't that amazing? And there's that beauty of self-forgetfulness, as Tim Keller says.
Love that.
That's a really good practical thing, particularly when you're feeling lonely and isolated.
Yeah, I love that.
But I never get to the T's. That's why I don't.
T's are far down.
You feel better about like the P's. Yeah. Although I'm a C and I haven't got one of those texts yet.
I think you're in my phone as stars go dim.
That was quick and I appreciate it.
I want to say vulnerability puts you in the present. Yeah. Transparency doesn't.
And I think give the difference.
So transparency is, hey, look at all this stuff that I struggle with.
Right.
Vulnerability is, hey, I really struggle with being alone. Would you come sit with me? And true vulnerability gives you the freedom to say yes, no, or maybe.
Gives the other person
otherwise it's not vulnerability, it's manipulation.
Wow.
If I say I've been really lonely and I'm gonna kill myself if you don't come over.
Right.
That's not vulnerability. That's manipulation, coercion. And transparency would be like, yeah, I'm really struggling. Really horrible. I have horrible thoughts and feelings. And I think a lot of us pride ourselves in how transparent we can be. Right. But usually transparency is pretty curated.
For sure.
Or it's just not asking the next move, you know. That's been something I've been really fascinated by, is the difference of authenticity and vulnerability. Because I think we live in a culture that really thinks they've conflated the two. They think they're the same thing.
Yeah. We love when people are transparent or authentic, but the vulnerability part is actually not that encouraged.
You can't really be vulnerable on Instagram.
Yeah.
Right.
It's voyeuristic. you know? And if something's voyeuristic, it's not vulnerable.
Hmm.
I would say Brené Brown could come on and disagree with me, but
Next week.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have to take 2 seconds and just fangirl about Mike and I want it on the record.
Yeah.
Because I've been jealous of him for numerous reasons, even aside from his career, right? This comparison thing.
Yeah.
First time I met him and just thought it was great. The biggest thing, and I literally talked to somebody about this last week, and I can't remember what it was. It's in a song, right? And I said, freaking Mike Donehey. Like, he always knows these quotes, and he knows the guys' names, and he knows the exact quote, and he brings it like, and they just wrote, like you said, like 20 of them today.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I read a book, and I think they may have had an author, and here was kind of the gist of it. And I'm like, I'm so jealous of the fact that you know quotes.
To make you feel better, Jesus all the time goes, the scriptures say. So,
Yeah.
so don't beat yourself up too much.
Other than that, Mike does have a sneaking awesome record that's out that he just released called Flourish. And he let me sit in a room while he wrote one of the best songs I've ever sat in the room for that I'm really pumped about, and a podcast I've listened to every episode of. So, okay, that's all my
Great. So good.
fanboy moments. So there it is.
You have fanboy girl. Mike, we've got 10,000 questions for you.
I'm ready.
This is what we like to call speed round.
At 10,000, it better be fast.
It's fast. It's super quick. It's super quick. Oh gosh, the first one we've already talked about. Who's your favorite touring workout buddy?
Tim Timmons.
Oh my God.
I didn't even write these. That's the crazy part. These just like popped up.
It's like just a Google search.
Yeah. I
It was
Google
actually,
search.
Just random
it was actually
questions.
the popcorn guy at this arena that I worked out with after you.
Oh no.
Yeah, he was
popcorn
amazing.
Oh, okay. Hobby.
Golf, I guess. That's a hobby, right?
Yeah, it's a hobby.
Sure.
It's not a sport.
It's
That's
not a
for
sport.
sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you have any other hobbies?
No.
No, that one was good.
Do I have any other hobbies?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Sure I do.
That's a great answer.
Right now, my kids just got back in school, so I feel like my hobby is picking them up and dropping them off from school.
Totally.
It's like that's my hobby right now.
Totally. Favorite song you didn't write? Favorite song.
Lately, there's a Switchfoot song that goes, if you could let the pain of the past go, oh, none of this is in your control. Have you heard that one?
Huh.
You could only let your guard down. You could just believe it. I swear that I won't let you go. Won't let you go. That's what it's called. That's the melody is just absurd on that song. So absurd.
Whatever on him.
Yeah.
3 words to describe yourself.
Complicated.
Yep. Complicated.
Gregarious. And excitable.
Yes. Yes. I like all those.
Yeah.
Weird quirk about you. Maybe that you know big words. Just some quirky thing about Mike D.
Of course.
About Mike Lee.
There's so many to choose from is the problem.
Anybody who jumps in the
Complicated.
middle of a street and dances is I got the whole thing.
I can't not eat potato chips late at night. I eat so healthy.
Potato
So-
chips. Specifically potato
How
chips?
many do you eat?
I mean, I'm.
Do you have self-control?
Yeah, I'm doing better at not pounding the whole bag.
Okay.
But I'll get a bowl. I make myself get a bowl or something. And sometimes I will just eat a whole bag.
I have
of
a
potato
very
chips.
similar situation in relationship with fruit snacks.
Yeah. It's awkward.
Fruit snacks.
Yeah.
It's a serious problem. I eat
Mike,
so
it's
healthy
real.
during the day and then
fruit snacks.
bags and bags of fruit snacks. Oh yeah.
That's amazing.
Just eat all my
We had
kids'
his
stuff.
wife on here.
I wonder
and
if
she
you
was
could
giving
get a
us-
placebo saline
Maybe.
sort
I think you maybe
gummies with, well, there's other gummies
Yeah,
you could eat that
yeah,
would
yeah.
make you eat even more
could.
gummies.
Yeah,
Right.
does not help.
Yeah, anyway.
Oh man.
Like maybe some essential oil,
Yeah.
just something that's 0 caloric that you could just
I need it.
crush.
I don't know if the calories are the issue though for you.
I mean, they are. I feel like they're gonna kill me.
Yeah.
I'm to that age in
good
life.
for you.
Oh, it can't.
Can't be good for you.
It can't be. Anyways.
Okay. Pet peeve.
Pet peeve
Yeah.
when guys run me off the road and then cuss at me for walking.
Yeah.
Big pet peeve.
Yeah. What about that?
just being accused of doing something wrong that you didn't do.
Oh,
Yes, there it is.
The incense.
That's-
I am so innocent in this situation.
Yes, right.
The perceived guilt with which you are shading upon me is preposterous.
Misunderstood. How do you do when you're misunderstood in life?
I dance.
Dance upon injustice.
I will say I used to be really, really defensive, and maybe not even defensive. I went the other way. I went despairing, defeated.
Yeah.
When someone would call me out.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at going, yeah, it could be true. Definitely. Let me think about that.
Yeah.
Favorite joke?
That I can share.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy, I love this one. There's two whales sitting at a bar, and the one whale says to the other whale, and the other whale says, "Dang it, Frank, you're drunk. Just go home."
Stop.
That's good.
So good.
That's really good.
Two whales. I think it's the funniest part is that the two whales are sitting there at the bar. I picture them.
And his name is Frank.
Yeah.
I picture blue whales, like with the
beluga.
Yeah, I mean,
I definitely don't picture killer whales.
no, it's not killer whales.
That's not funny.
Yeah, no, they're killer whales.
Yeah.
Calm down, guys.
Yes.
Leave the seals alone.
What are you most afraid of?
Killer whales.
Always.
Spiders.
Really?
I mean,
I thought you'd have something more existential.
you'd think so.
Yeah.
I think it's because
Spiders are that gnarly.
I saw arachnophobia as a kid.
Me too.
And we live in Tennessee. There's black widows and brown recluses everywhere.
Everywhere.
I
Do you
mean,
remember where you saw it?
Yeah, Nate Whitley's basement. The worst.
That jerk. What's his name?
Nate Whitley.
I hate that
Nate.
kid.
No, he's a good kid. I hate that.
I hate his basement then.
Yeah, I hate that he exposed me to that. No, greatest fear, probably being cheated on and left by my wife. That's probably, which is why I create the story.
Totally.
So there's something in my story. I need to go to therapy.
Something deeper in there.
There's something in my thinking I'm gonna get
Are your parents together?
not chosen. Maybe
Oh, yeah, maybe that's
it's
it.
not even the being left. It's the not preferring me over someone else. Yeah, no, my parents are still together. Yeah, they're awesome.
I've met him. Bucket list.
Besides doing this podcast,
Obviously.
bucket list. I really do want to play a concert at Red Rocks, even more than the Ryman. I've gotten to open up for people at the Ryman, so I would love to headline a show at the Ryman, but
We played at the Ryman together.
yeah, but it's different when you're playing for someone else's
Totally.
crowd. It's just different. But playing my own show at Red Rocks, I mean, that's a pretty tall ask. But if it happened, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Spring 2022, baby.
I'm doing it.
Let's
It's gonna
go.
be 50 people in the front row.
Doesn't even matter.
They're empty.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh my goodness, what a gift.
So good. Okay. Well, you guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this. If there are ways that we can help or encourage you to join Jesus or be more aware of him in your 10,000 minutes, I do love hearing where you're listening and what you guys are learning. So please feel free to let us know either through Facebook or Instagram, or you can text us back on the text thread, or if you get the emails, you can reply to those emails. Okay. Thanks, you guys. 10,000 minutes experiment out.